Thank you for joining us this morning. My name is Juan Salas, and welcome to the class for You Have Hired Your First Employee. Now what? This is a Friday morning that we're going to learn some good basics about payroll. We're going to talk about your first week as an employer, some IRS compliance issues like payroll taxes and some required forms. We're going to cover some state compliance and employment insurance and workers' compensation, and finally give you an action plan and some tips. It's very stressful to hire your first employee sometimes, but there are resources out there. We want to bring you want you to pay attention to this particular one, which is the Department of Business and Industry. This is their website, and you're going to find the Business Resource Center, the Nevada Business Support Ecosystem, and a guide to starting your business. Within the guide, you're going to find our address, our website, which will bring you to our brand new website that is coming up this month in October, and is the Small Business Education Program. On this website, you're going to have access to our virtual classroom, which will present you with all the videos that we have been doing, and we have formatted all the videos and organized them in different subjects: finance, marketing, operations, startup management, and podcast. So you can definitely go on each of these subject areas and you will find more information about marketing, how to do your website, finance, about profit and loss statements, startup, the Canvas model, management, about employee manual and onboarding classes. All those are available for you here 24/7. So let's get started. You know what? As an employer, you need to be prepared to manage expectations and anxiety. If you hire an employee, that's going to happen the first week. There's going to be some expectations, unspoken expectation, and some ideas about what is required from the employee, and there's going to be some anxiety. So then the new employee is counting on the employer for orientation. So having a schedule of activities establishes good communication from the beginning. You're telling the employee that you have a plan. There's going to be a successful integration of that particular person into your business, into your system of doing things. So discuss and reinforce the description of the work to be done. Some parameters, what's going to be the evaluation for. Even though it's going to be one employee and you think that is going to be just him coming to work, you paying him or her? No. Eventually, you're going to have to evaluate that employee. Eventually, as you grow, you're going to have to set some parameters, and it's better to set the parameters from the beginning so those evaluations come easier down the road. Evaluations are going to happen because you're going to have to evaluate the performance of that particular employee down the road. How those skills, outputs of the employee are aligned with the overall mission accomplishments of the company. So that's going to be part of the evaluation. And it's fair for everybody. It is fair for everybody that you start talking about those things and establish those things, so it doesn't come up as a surprise. Reinforcing expectations. If you have an employee handbook or an onboarding process, which we're going to talk more about, now is the time to present those things, that talk about the culture, talk about the mission statement of the company. And also in the first week, you have to collect and sign all the necessary documents for IRS, for your own internal purposes, for legal protection, okay? So everything must happen in this first week, in the first few days, some of these things. but have a schedule of activities so you don't fall into the cracks and the new employee is going to think, okay, you know what, this owner doesn't have all his ducks aligned. So is it going to be a successful company? Should I be looking for something else by now? So make sure those activities are already organized. What is the onboarding and why is it important? On the first week, everything is going to be about onboarding, incorporating that employee into the culture of your company. So includes teaching the new hires about the attitudes, competencies, company culture, employee expectations, and the behaviors required to function effectively. This might be big words, but we're talking about details. We're talking about, how, if you're going to start at 9 a.m., are you supposed to come 9? Are you supposed to come 10 minutes before 9? What happens if you're stuck in traffic? What's the procedure to letting you know? You need some days off. How can you request that, if it's possible or not? All those little things like dress code. What is expected of that employee? Can you wear this? You cannot wear that. Things from some businesses. If for example, you are you have a pet store or veterinary clinic, okay? Many employees cannot wear perfume, if you're in a childcare facility, you cannot wear earrings because those are safety concerns. The little ones can just, see a little flashy thing on the ear and they just want to pull it and it will become an accident. So those details about the functions of your company must be presented in the first week. Important to make an employee feel valuable and truly understand what is expected of them. It really helps from the emotional point of view and anxiety point of view that the employee is immersed into the company culture. There's a mission of the company. The company and the owner created the company to accomplish something. So make sure the employee understand its part in the whole. How is his job or her job important to accomplish the final destination? And use this time to train the new employee the way you want it. Many come from other places of work where the culture is different, where things are done differently. So make sure you can train that particular first week so things are done the way you want it to do. As business owners, we always run things like a habit. Things come down automatically. It makes perfect sense to do things a certain way in our head because we have been doing it. We were the only person that does everything. So things come up automatically and make sense in our head. But that particular employee is new to the whole process. So you have to let them know what things make sense and what things are have logic for you. And sometimes it's not the same thing for the new employee. It happens not only on the job, it happens in many situations where things are so logical in our head, but when we see somebody else doing that, it's like, what are you doing? Why didn't you do this instead of that? Or why you didn't think about this the same way I do? So make sure you can pass that information into your new employee and make them think like you do, or at least follow some parameters so they will accomplish the outcomes the same way you are expecting. 28% of employees quit in the first 90 days. This is pretty high. So are you ready to afford training an employee and then quitting? Or do you want that person to stick around for a long time to grow with the business? So make sure the onboarding process is successful and you can count with that employee. And what do you have to include in this onboarding process? Like any process, it should be in writing and ready to implement step by step. So you have to divide that, put it in writing and divide it on step by step. Like when we put together a desk or a piece of furniture, there's a step-by-step instructions with the proper tools so we can accomplish what is needed, okay? But the onboarding process might include some classroom time, about the software that you're using, how to receive invoices, how to make calls, how to record a particular inventory item. If you have an employee handbook, this is the perfect time to review it. The employee handbook is just not a big, boring document. It can be a video, it can be something exciting where you can communicate the values of your company. Equipment, a company tour. Why do we come every morning here? This is our goal. This is our mission. Please come aboard the board. Let's row in the same direction. Equipment is very important. We're talking about computers. We're talking about passwords. We're talking about maybe cell phones. And we're talking also about restrictions. You cannot use the computer for personal stuff. You cannot use the vehicle, the car for personal stuff. There are many details that for us as business owners, it's just logic or you need to think about it. But when you bring somebody, the door open, there are many possibilities and many ideas that would come across that particular employee. So make sure you can guide them properly. Job shadowing on the job by other employees. If you have the opportunity for other employees to train your new employee, or have good communication with the main vendors. Introduce that new employee to your main contacts, your vendors. It can be to receive inventory. It can be to go and make deposits. Maybe it's a good idea to introduce him or her to your personal banker, to your business banker, so good communication can flow. And schedule meetings with important people in the company. Schedule meetings with you. Let's do, even though there are 2 people, owner and 1 employee in the company, schedule meetings. Have that formal communication every Friday. We're going to go and revise the week and what can we do to make a better week the next week. So you can definitely have those formal meetings, are going to be tax deductible, and also have or build proper communication. As an owner, when you hire a new employee, there are some things that you will not see anymore because you are delegating those activities. But you have to come up with a feedback process where you are not there, but you can learn and understand what's going on the other side of the business that you are not 100% involved anymore. Okay, so those feedback meetings and evaluations are necessary, and make sure you cover that on the first week, the expectations about that. So we're going to talk about IRS forms. Form W-4, okay? This is the form that must be signed before you cut a paycheck, okay? And we're going to tell you why. First week, first day, here, fill some forms about your withholdings and your taxes, and we're going to cover a little bit about this. The W-4 has been in existence for many, many years, but they made some changes, and it's not that clear anymore. So on the first step, very basic, first name, last name, address, social security number, if the person is single, married, or head of household, okay? That's very simple. They should know this information. On the second is about if the employee has other jobs or the spouse has other jobs. This is not gonna make a big difference in the withholdings, but if they are married and the spouse is working and making more money, you can mark this section. Step 3. Step 3 is sometimes confusing for many employees, and you can provide them with some guidance here. On the step 3 is, in the step 3, first is how many dependents or qualifying children under 17 you can claim in your tax return, okay? So if I have a son under 17, I will multiply the number of dependents, 1 times 2,000. So I'm gonna write 2,000 here. Okay, what about other dependents? If I have 2 sons, that one is older than 17 and one is younger than 17. So I'm gonna multiply 1 by 2,000. And then on the second line, 1 by 500. So it's gonna give me a total of 2,500 down here on step 3. So it's basically the children or other dependents multiplied by 2,000 for children and 500 for other dependents. Okay. Or number 4 is other income. I don't like this section for step 4. Sometimes it can be a little bit of intrusive, but you would put here if you have other income, other deductions like interest or rental income, but it's not really necessary. It says optional here, okay? And number 5, of course, signature of the employee and the date. And sometimes the employers forget the last part, which is the employers only section, which you put the name of your business and you put the first date of employment and your EIN number. Nobody's gonna check on the number 5 on the employers only. I mean, this is not a form that you send to IRS. You keep it for internally. But if you ever wonder, when did you hire that employee? This is gonna be the best place to look for it. And if the employee requests a copy of this, it should have the employer's name and address because their personal information was shared with you with that particular employer. Okay. So far, I don't see any questions. So let's move along. Let me just change here, everyone. If you have any questions, you can raise your hand, write it on the text chat, or just use the Q&A section. Let's move along. I-9. This is another form that the employee must file and complete, which is the employment eligibility verification form. It has very common sections: name, last name, address, social security number, email if you want, and telephone number. Then they would have to choose if they're a citizen, a non-citizen, maybe a resident, or have any other type of work authorization. This is all on the first page. I just had to cut it so it will fit here. But after it signs, the employee signs and dates the document, keep it on the employee file. In the next section is, it applies if somebody else prepared the form for the employee, or there was a translation service assistance. So this is for the preparer or translator certification. And it has 2 more pages, which is the employer review and verification and the list of acceptable documents. So on page 2, you're just gonna input your information as an employer. And number 3 is for just reference purposes, some acceptable documents that help you verify the Social Security and all that information that comes here. So let's talk about taxes. Let's talk about withholdings. Then once you become an employer, you have more fiscal responsibilities. Before, you only had to worry about your own personal taxes. Now you have to make withholdings of your employees' taxes, match those employee taxes, and send it to IRS. So first, the W-4 that you already collected is going to be used to calculate how much of income taxes will be in the withholdings. So that's why the W-4 is so important before you make any pay stubs or make any checks. So the W-4 is going to help you figure it out how much in income taxes you have to withhold. FICA taxes for Social Security, which is 6.20, and Medicare 1.45%. Those two add up to 7.65%. This is the additional withholdings that you have to make. And we're going to do a practical example in a bit. And then as an employer, you have to match your employer contribution for FICA of 7.65%. All these deposits, all these withholdings and contributions, you have to send it to IRS using the EFTPS website, and also make any other available discounts or deductions regarding 401k, health savings account, health insurance, seguro médico, which is in Spanish, and all those things. So if you offer 401k, yes, it has to happen here, part of the withholdings. If you offer HSA, health savings accounts, yes, you have to make the proper withholdings based on the forms, on the choices of the employee, okay? So it can be only FICA deductions, but if you start offering 401ks and health insurance and things like that, those deductions have more items. Let's talk about the EFTPS, the Electronic Federal Tax Payment System. The EFTPS website looks like this. And it's just eftps.gov. when you first get your EIN number, you are asked, do you have employees or will you have employees? If you answer yes, you will receive information about EFTPS. If you answer no, okay, you will not receive information about EFTPS. So let's assume that you answer yes, but you lost the letter, you forgot, you don't know if you answered yes or no. So you go to this website and you go to the enroll link. The enroll link is going to ask you for your employer identification number, your business, your contact information, and your bank account information. Your business bank account information. Why? Because once you are enrolled, the IRS, you will let the IRS know, take this much money out of my account because of the withholdings of the tax withholdings. So that's why you provide your bank account information in the enrollment process. Once you are enrolled and complete that information, review and then complete, you're going to get a letter. The letter is going to come with a confirmation number about your enrollment, which is very, very important, and a PIN number. Those two pieces of information are very important. So save them, take a picture, scan it, put it in a secure place that you can always go back to. Because you will need your PIN number every time you want to access the EFTPS system. So to access the EFTPS system, you need to enter your EIN, your PIN number, and a password that you will create after you get your letter, okay? So those three items you need to log in into your EFTPS website every single time, okay? So make sure you save that information. Once you are in EFTPS, inside, you let the IRS know, I want to make a deposit for my payroll taxes for this much, and they will take the money from your bank account. So let's talk about an example. This person gets paid bi-weekly, okay? And it's a single person. I have the check date and the period that covers this remuneration. It gets paid a salary for $2,000, okay? But the check is only for $1,672. What happened with the rest of the money? It's about taxes. First deductions for 7.6%, 7.65%, 124 and 29. Those are the FICA taxes that you take out from the employee, 153. Also, don't forget that you have to match that amount. So as an employer, you have to contribute as well, $153. And also, you deducted from the paycheck $175 for federal income taxes. Remember, that was based on the W-4. So those three items you take from the employee and you keep them for a little bit. You put your matching of 153 and your total deposit is $481. This is the withholdings plus your matching, the total amount that corresponds to one pay stub. One pay stub. So let's see. If is 481 and the person gets paid twice a month, is 481, 962. What do you do with that money? That money doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the government and the employee. Okay. So the employer must deposit those 962 before the 15th of September via the EFTPS. So if you pay the person in August 15 and the 30th, you have to deposit 962 before the 15th of September. Okay, so it's always the following month that you make the payment. You have to make that deposit. So very important, very important. Do not mix funds. You know, make sure that you have those 962 available, maybe in a separate account or something, so you can definitely make that deposit. It is very convenient, and I suggest this, if you have more than one employee and starts to getting too confusing, use a payroll provider, okay? But like we said in every single class, you can delegate, but do not lose control. You can delegate, but do not lose sight of things and control, because as an employer, you are responsible for those access. So keep the good communication and, you know, check if all the withholdings and deposits, everything is being properly made on time as well. So now let's talk about Nevada. That was related to mainly IRS. In Nevada, this is a very useful website, the Office of the Labor Commissioner, okay? Here you will find information about status and regulation, minimum wage and overtime bulletins, and employer postings, required postings. These are the flyers or the posters that has to be displayed in your business when you have employees. Okay, so as soon as you have employees, you're gonna start getting some mail, some advertisement about these required postings. Okay, so this is where you find information about that, and you can download some of the postings in this website for free as well. Okay, so some news that you will find here: when they changed the minimum wage, you know, it was part of the bulletins. You know, starting July 1st, the minimum wage is going to be $9,875 for employers that offer health insurance, $975 for the ones that don't. Overtime, how much do you pay in overtime? How is overtime paid? That information is in this website, and they have the section of frequently asked questions, so you can definitely find more information about that. There are so many different industries, so we cannot cover all the industries that are here in Las Vegas, but we can definitely point you in the right direction about finding information and keeping out of trouble. The other website is workers' compensation. Is workers' compensation optional? Nope. All employers need coverage unless excluded by statute. Okay. How much is the workers' comp? It depends. It depends on the type of work of the employee and the history of the business. If the business already has a history of accidents and complaints, or they file for some coverage or not, it works kind of your health insurance. or your driving record. So it works very similar to that. Nevada monitors very, very closely workers' compensation insurance coverage. They have communication with all the carriers. It works very similar like your DMV registration and insurance. So the carriers will let the state know if they drop the insurance or they don't have enough insurance and things like that. So always double check with your broker if you need extra insurance maybe, or if you are in compliance with the workers' compensation. And it's based on the type of work. So if you have a receptionist or you have an electrician as an employee, it's different. They perform different tasks. One is more risky than the other. So the cost will vary, and make sure that in your workers' compensation policy, the employees are identified in their job description. Okay, so if you have a receptionist, make sure it is classified as a receptionist and no a driver, for example, okay? Because it will affect the cost. The workers' comp is controlled by the Industrial Relationships Agency inside the Department of Business and Industry. And in their website, you will find also employer brochures, employer frequently asked questions that will provide you with some guidance on requirements, like the mandatory posting requirements. See, this was updated on this particular dates. So your employees feel safe while working with you. And it is a requirement. Unemployment insurance. This is another cost when you have an employee. So it is based on the total wage paid. So to a maximum of $30,500. So the rate is 2.95% of the wages, but it will apply only to the 30,500. So if somebody is making 50,000, then employment insurance is not going to be more. It's not going to cost you more. And very important, it is required to do it electronically. This is their website, which is very, very handy, because all the calculations, all the required forms are done inside the portal, and you can keep all the documents. You can see all the reporting, previous reporting. You can make the payments directly as well. So it is a very good website. You have to register for the website like every portal. And once in there, you just enter your employees' information, how much you paid them, and all the calculations are done for you. Inside the portal, also the SEP fees will be calculated. SEP fees is for, I think, continuing career education program, and are based also on the salary. The percentage is 0.05%. Little by little, that employee is costing you more. So it is important that before you hire somebody, calculate how much that employee is going to really cost you. You know, you have the 7 0.65 that we talk about for the matching. Now we have the 2.95% plus another 0.05%. So we are very close to the, 10%. So rough estimate, 10% additional cost for having an employee. And that's not counting on workers' compensation. Modified business tax. This is another tax which we don't have a portal for this. It is a part of the Nevada Department of Taxation. It is not part of the unemployment insurance department. So this money goes to a different agency in the state, not the same one as the unemployment insurance. It's also based quarterly. It is based on your salaries above 50,000. Remember, the other one was below 30,500. This one is above 50,000 and is 0.04175%. Unfortunately, this one we have to do it by paper. You made the check and you send it to this department. In the Nevada Department of Taxation, you can download this form. They have an Excel version and a Word version that you can plug in just the first number here and everything will be calculated. Let's talk about our action plan, because we covered many things from onboarding to tax compliance. But that first week, it must be very well planned ahead, because it will be the first impression of that employee about your business and also you as a business owner. During the interview process, everything and everybody is showing the best, okay? It is maybe 2-3 hours of interview. Everybody is very well prepared with the questions, and I know what to tell that person about me, and the employer, I know what to ask about that person. But that first week will set the parameters for how that relationship is going to work and what kind of information is relevant or not. So create a to-do. Every time you hire somebody, don't recreate the wheel again. Have some of the main documents like the W-4, the I-9, your copy of the contract, certifications, permits, everything that you need for that employee handy. For example, if you need a driver, yes, you definitely need a copy of the driver's license. If it's gonna be somebody in your nail salon, you need that person with their license or their certifications from the health department as well. So definitely collect that information and mark important dates in your calendar. This is very, very important. I've seen many employers that they complain, they say, I don't want to pay these fees, I don't want to pay this interest or penalties, but they keep doing the same thing all over and all over. So make sure you put it on your calendar. And I'm going to give you an image in a second here. But don't forget your 941s, your NV compliance forms, your W-2s, W-3s, everything else. This is a calendar or a workflow of how things happen from the IRS and Nevada, okay? Don't get scared about this, all these blocks and this, all these colors. We're gonna go through it. Give me 1 second. Let me get my tool here. Okay. So this is divided in quarters. We got the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, and fourth quarter. Okay, this is the way the IRS kind of thinks about the workflow. So January, February, March, first quarter, then second quarter, third quarter, and fourth quarter. For every single month, you're gonna have 2 pay stubs, right? Bi-weekly. So for every single month, you're gonna pay that employee 1672, 1672, 1672. This is from our example. Remember that in our example, we calculated that $962 was going to be deposited every single month, right? Every single month for the previous month. So for January, before the 15th of February, we're gonna make that deposit of 962 via EFTPS. And that's gonna happen all the way down. Every 15, the money from the previous month. In January of next year, we're gonna make the deposit of 962 regarding the previous month, which was December, before the 15th. So this is all about EFTPS. What about 941s that I mentioned? The 941s correspond to the activities of the quarter. So before the 30th of April, we're gonna file the information about the first quarter. Okay, so in this 941, it's gonna have the information about how much I paid to that employee and how much were my deposits for that particular quarter. Okay, so that's all the information the 941 will collect. How much was the salaries and how much were the estimated or the withholdings deposits. So the 941, it should have a 0 amount due. If you didn't make the deposits on time or you forgot to do it, yes, it will have some money that you owe, but it should be 0 if you follow what you were supposed to follow. What about Nevada? We talk about also quarterly filings. In Nevada, before the 30th of after the quarter, which in this particular case is April, we're gonna send all the information about unemployment. So in this report, we're gonna include the information about the salaries that we paid, which is gonna be 2,000. Remember, this is the net check, but the actual salary was 2,000. So the website, the portal is gonna calculate the percentage and it's gonna let you know how much you have to pay. This is for the Nevada as well. And then at the end of the year, to IRS and the employee and the Social Security Administration, you have to send the final yearly reports, which is the W-2, the W-3, and the 940. So by January of after the year, before the 30th of January, you have to send the W-2, which is the total wages paid to the employee, the W-3, which is the total of all your W-2s. If you have only one employee, it's going to be the same amount as the W-2. And the 940, which is going to be the summary of all the 941s on some federal unemployment. Okay, so this is kind of the workflow that happens in the eyes of the IRS, and you have to visualize as an employer. Okay, hope this flow and the dates, the important dates, help you visualize and you can avoid any problems and late fees. And here are some websites. We're gonna send you a copy of this presentation later in the week, next week. So about employers' publications, employers page, where you can download the W-4, the I-9, some unemployment insurance information, and the website for the Nevada Industrial Relations section for the employers. Okay. And to conclude, I just want to remind you about our virtual library, where we have a bunch of videos about finance, marketing, operations, startup management. Make sure to visit our webpage. You're going to find more information, more classes, how-tos, and tips. This is all for today. Thank you for joining us. My name is Juan Salas. I'm a instructor with extension.unr. Let us know if you have any questions and you know how to reach us. Thank you. Stay safe and enjoy your weekend.